The airport was alive with the chaos of night travel. Bright fluorescent lights hummed above, reflecting off polished floors that echoed with the footsteps of thousands. Families bustled with children, businessmen clutched briefcases, tired tourists dragged their bags like lifelines. Amid the sea of faces, Clara looked like just another passenger, rushing to catch her late night flight. But there was nothing ordinary about her suitcase. It was larger than most, heavy despite her slim frame, and she clutched its handle as if it contained her soul. Every turn of its small plastic wheels scraped loudly against the tile, louder to her ears than the chatter of the crowd. Inside, beneath layers of carefully arranged clothes and blankets, was a secret no one could ever discover. A child, 7-year-old Lily, lay curled in the cramped darkness, her small body pressed between folded sweaters. Clara had whispered instructions before zipping it closed. Don't move, don't make a sound. This is the only way. Clara's heart pounded so violently she was afraid people could hear it. She adjusted her scarf to cover more of her face. She knew the rules. Keep your eyes down, don't draw attention, act normal. But her hands trembled on the suitcase handle. Every airport announcement made her flinch. As she approached the security checkpoint, sweat prickled her neck. The conveyor belt gleamed under bright lights. Passengers in front of her unloaded laptops, belts, shoes, tossing them carelessly into plastic trays. One man joked loudly with the officer. Another scrolled through his phone without a care in the world. But for Clara, every movement felt like a noose tightening. She placed the suitcase on the belt, forcing her face into calmness. Her pulse thundered in her ears as it rolled toward the X-ray machine. She imagined Lily's outline glowing on the screen, imagined guards rushing forward, sirens blaring, guns raised. The officer running the scanner yawned, uninterested. For a moment Clara thought she was safe, until the machine beeped. The guard frowned. He tapped the screen. "Ma'am, can you step aside, please?" Clara's stomach dropped. "Is there a problem?" she asked, forcing her voice steady. "Just routine," the guard said, but his eyes lingered on the suitcase. His hand reached for the zipper. Clara's breath caught. Lily's whole world was behind that zipper. Then chaos erupted beside them. A man in another lane was shouting, angry about having to remove his shoes. He slammed his tray down, scattering items across the floor. Security officers rushed over, their attention diverted. The guard's hand slipped away from Clara's suitcase as he turned to help with the commotion. Clara seized the chance. She grabbed the suitcase and pushed forward, mumbling apologies as she hurried past. Her legs shook so badly she nearly tripped, but somehow she kept moving, weaving through the crowd until the gate signs appeared like salvation. On the plane, she finally allowed herself to breathe. The suitcase sat by her feet, too large for the overhead bins. She pressed it firmly with her legs, as if she could shield Lily with her own body. Around her, passengers settled in, a mother soothing her baby, teenagers laughing, an old man coughing into his handkerchief. Normal people, normal lives. Clara closed her eyes for a moment. Maybe, just maybe, they were safe. Then she felt it, a pair of eyes on her. She glanced up. Across the aisle, a man watched her intently, not casually, not curious like other travelers. His stare was sharp, dissecting. He had dark hair neatly combed back, a strong jaw, and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. He smiled faintly when their eyes met, but there was no warmth in it. Clara looked away quickly, heart racing. She tried to focus on the safety demonstration, on the stewardess pointing to exits, but she could feel his gaze like a knife against her skin. The plane roared down the runway. Clara pressed her foot against the suitcase, whispering under her breath, "It's okay, Lily. We're almost free." Minutes passed. The city lights fell away beneath the clouds. Passengers settled in, ordering drinks, pulling out books. Clara dared to relax, if only slightly. Then the man across the aisle leaned forward. His voice was low, just for her. "I know what you're hiding." Clara's blood froze. She turned to him slowly, forcing her expression into confused innocence. "Excuse me." His smile widened just enough to be unsettling. He leaned back casually, as if discussing the weather. "That suitcase," he said softly. "It's heavier than it should be, and it moves." Her throat tightened. "You must be mistaken." He shook his head. "No, I used to work for them, the people you're running from. I know what's inside." Clara's breath caught. Fear surged through her veins like ice water. How could he know? Who was he? The man extended his hand as though they were in a polite introduction. "Daniel?" Clara didn't take it. Daniel's smile faded, his tone sharpening. "If you want her to survive, you need me." Clara's mind spun. She wanted to scream, to deny everything. But then the suitcase shifted, just slightly, but enough. A muffled sound, a child's whimper, escaped through the zipper. Clara pressed her foot hard against it, panic flooding her. Her eyes darted around the cabin, praying no one else heard. But Daniel had. His expression softened, almost pitying. "They'll never stop," he whispered. "Not until she's back in their hands." Clara's heart pounded so loudly she thought it would burst, and as the plane cut through the night sky, Clara realized the truth. The real danger wasn't behind them anymore. It was sitting across the aisle. The plane had leveled off, humming steadily above the blanket of clouds. Passengers were already drifting into routines. Headphones slipped over ears, pillows tucked under necks, plastic cups of soda clinking on fold-out trays. To anyone else, it was just another midnight flight, but Clara couldn't relax. Her foot pressed firmly against the suitcase, every nerve stretched tight as a wire. She couldn't afford another sound from Lily. She'd packed the blankets carefully, left a gap for air, whispered endless reassurances before sealing the zipper. "Stay still, stay quiet, just a little longer." And then there was the man, Daniel. He still hadn't looked away. That faint smile of his, calm yet knowing, carved itself into her nerves. Clara folded her arms, turning her face toward the window. Clouds glowed faintly in the moonlight, vast and endless. She tried to lose herself in the silence. But his voice cut through like a blade. "You can't keep this up," he said softly. Clara's jaw tightened. She pretended not to hear. "I know who you're running from," he continued. His voice was low enough that only she could hear it, yet steady, certain. "And I know why." Clara snapped her head toward him. "Excuse me." Daniel leaned back slightly, keeping his hands visible, his tone casual, as if he were discussing sports or weather, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. "That child," he said, "she's not safe with you, not safe with anyone, unless you know the truth." Clara's throat dried. "I don't know what you're talking about." His lips curved, not in amusement, but in pity. "I used to work for them, the ones who are chasing you. I know how they think, how they hunt, and I know what makes her so valuable." Clara's pulse hammered so loud she could barely hear the rumble of the engines. "You don't know anything." Daniel lowered his voice further, so soft she almost leaned in against her will. "She's not the first, Clara. Dozens before her. Children who remembered things they should never have known. Faces, names, entire lives that didn't belong to them." Her chest tightened. How could he know her name? Daniel smiled faintly at her reaction. They always remember their mothers first, even the ones they've never met. Clara looked down at the suitcase, heart racing. Lily, sweet, frightened Lily, who sometimes whispered names in her sleep, names that made no sense, who stared at strangers on the street with a recognition that chilled Clara to the bone. "You're lying," Clara hissed. I wish I was, Daniel said. His tone was flat, bitter. I brought some of them in myself. Thought I was doing the right thing, until I realized what happened after. Clara swallowed hard. What happened? Daniel's eyes darkened. They disappear. Not just the children, the records, the families, entire histories wiped clean, as if they never existed. Clara forced herself to look away. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of her fear, but inside her stomach was churning. She had seen it herself. Neighbors who asked questions one day, gone the next. Documents vanishing from hospitals. Photographs burned without explanation. She had clung to Lily because she was all that remained. The plane shuddered suddenly, jolting passengers awake. A stewardess hurried down the aisle, reassuring them with a strained smile. Just turbulence, ladies and gentlemen. Please remain seated. Clara gripped the armrests, knuckles white. The suitcase shifted slightly, and she pressed it down with her leg. She prayed no one heard the muffled gasp from inside. But Daniel heard. His expression softened. She won't survive in there much longer. He whispered, "Stay away from us." Clara snapped. Daniel leaned back, raising his hands as if in surrender, but his eyes stayed locked on her. "I'm not your enemy, but they'll come for this plane before it lands, and when they do, you'll wish you'd listened." The words dug into her mind like hooks. She tried to ignore them, tried to focus on the hum of the engines, the monotony of the cabin. But unease spread like poison. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. Calm, professional, too calm. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Nothing to be alarmed about, but we will be making an unscheduled landing. A ripple of confusion spread through the passengers. Whispers, nervous laughter, questions to the flight attendants. Clara's stomach sank. An unscheduled landing at midnight. Daniel's smile returned, thin and grim. "See," he murmured, "they're already here." The plane began to descend. Lights flickered outside the windows, floodlights cutting through the night. Clara craned her neck and froze. On the runway below, rows of black vans waited like predators, headlights gleaming. Dark figures stood beside them, unmoving, too precise to be mere ground crew. Clara's blood turned to ice. Daniel leaned closer, his voice urgent now. "Listen to me. If you don't run the second that door opens, you'll never see her again." The wheels touched down with a bone, rattling jolt. The cabin erupted into nervous chatter. Clara's mind raced, her pulse thundered. Her hands found the suitcase handle, gripping it so tightly her nails bit into her palms. From the window, she saw them advancing. Men in long coats, their faces shadowed, their steps perfectly in sync. Not airport security, not police, something colder, and in that moment Clara realized Daniel was right. They had already found her. Some pressed their phones to the windows, recording the strange sight of black vans and shadowed figures. The flight attendants moved briskly through the aisles, but Clara saw it in their faces. They were nervous too. Her suitcase was hot under her leg. Lily was breathing faster inside, shifting slightly. Clara pressed her palm down gently. "Please, just a little longer." The intercom crackled. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated while ground personnel approach the aircraft." Clara's blood ran cold. Ground personnel. She had seen airport workers before. Chatty, sluggish, human. The men outside moved like machines. Daniel leaned toward her. His voice was low, steady, almost surgical. "You have 60 seconds. When they open the door, you run. Don't think, don't hesitate, just run." Clara swallowed. "Run where?" Daniel's lips curved. "Follow me." The seatbelt light went off. Passengers began unbuckling, murmuring with relief. But Clara knew relief was a lie. Relief was the bait. The door opened with a hiss. Cold night air rushed into the cabin. A tall figure in black stepped inside, his face shadowed under a peaked cap. His gaze swept across the cabin with predatory precision. Clara's heart slammed. She clutched the suitcase handle. The man took one step forward and Daniel moved. He shoved Clara hard, knocking her into the aisle. Passengers gasped, some shouted. In the confusion, Daniel lunged at the figure in black, slamming him against the wall. A gun clattered to the floor. Screams erupted. "Run!" Daniel barked. Clara didn't think. She grabbed the suitcase and bolted, weaving through the panicked crowd. Behind her, shouts exploded. Boots thundered. Another gunshot cracked. The air outside was sharp, biting cold. Floodlights seared her eyes. Vans loomed on either side. Doors flung open. Dark shapes spilled out, sprinting toward her. She ran, feet pounding the tarmac, suitcase dragging like an anchor. Lily whimpered inside, the sound muffled but frantic. "Mommy." Clara's chest tore with pain. Not now, not here. She forced her legs faster. Then, another hand grabbed her arm. She spun, ready to fight. It was Daniel. Blood streaked his temple, but his eyes burned with urgency. This way. He dragged her toward the far side of the runway, where a maintenance gate stood ajar. Two men in black lunged to block them. Daniel didn't hesitate. He drew the fallen gun and fired. One went down. The other staggered, clutching his arm. Clara froze in horror. Daniel snarled, "Move." They burst through the gate into the shadows beyond. The roar of the airport faded behind them, swallowed by the night. They crouched in an abandoned barn far from the city lights. Daniel wasn't just helping her. At last. He was fighting Lily clinging to Clara's chest, eyes wide with fear. Clara kissed her hair, whispering, "It's okay, baby, it's okay." But her hands were trembling too hard to convince anyone. Daniel leaned against the wall, watching them. His face was pale, his breath ragged. The gun rested beside him. Finally, Clara broke. What do they want with her? Daniel's gaze flickered toward Lily. For the first time, he looked uneasy. She isn't just a child. She's a key. Clara shook her head violently. She's my daughter. Daniel's voice softened. I don't doubt that you love her, but she remembers things, doesn't she? Names she shouldn't know. Places she's never been. She dreams of fire, doesn't she? Clara's blood chilled. Lily whimpered, burying her face against her mother. Daniel leaned forward. She carries a memory that doesn't belong to her. The last fragment of someone who was erased. That's why they want her. She is proof that the erased aren't gone. They live on in fragments, in children like her. Clara's chest heaved. No, that's impossible. Daniel shook his head. I've seen it. They call them echoes, and the more she grows, the stronger that memory will become, until it swallows her whole. Lily lifted her head suddenly. Her eyes, normally so bright, were blank, distant. She whispered in a voice that wasn't hers. Elena. Clara froze. Daniel's face hardened. That's the name, the one they're hunting. Elena was someone powerful, someone they failed to erase completely, and now she's inside your daughter. Tears burned Clara's eyes. She held Lily tighter, rocking her. She's not anyone else. She's mine. Daniel didn't argue, but the look in his eyes said it all. Love wouldn't be enough. Outside, in the darkness, the crunch of tires rolled across gravel. The headlights swept over the barn walls. Men in black had been found, guns raised, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Clara screamed, shielding Lily with her body. Daniel leapt forward, firing until the gun clicked empty. He didn't stop. He tackled the first man, tearing the weapon from his hands. The barn became chaos. Gunfire, splintering wood, shouts swallowed by the storm of violence. Clara crawled toward the back, dragging Lily with her. But a shadow loomed. One of the men grabbed her hair, yanking her back. Lily screamed, and then her eyes flashed. For a heartbeat, the air rippled. Every man in the barn froze, hands clutching their heads. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the walls, through Clara's bones. Lily's voice rang out, layered, ancient. "You cannot erase me." The men collapsed, writhing. Lights shattered, wood cracked. Even Daniel staggered, eyes wide in shock. Clara held her daughter, trembling. "Lily, stop, please." But the voice inside her daughter was not Lily. It was Elena. Daniel grabbed Clara's arm, dragging her toward the door. "We have to go now." They stumbled into the night, leaving the fallen men behind. The barn smoldered with a strange, unnatural light, as if the air itself was on fire. Clara clutched Lily, tears streaming. Her little girl's face was blank, her voice still echoing with something not her own. Daniel's voice broke the silence. "Now you see, she isn't just yours anymore. She belongs to something greater, and they will never stop coming." Clara's heart shattered. She kissed Lily's head, whispering fiercely, "I don't care. She's my daughter, and I'll fight them all." In the distance, sirens wailed. The night swallowed them as they ran. The war for Lily had only just begun. The end of Season 1. If you wanna watch Season 2, then comment below.